This is your QRAE 3 that we carry on all the first out apparatus in the fire division. This device should be tested daily. It should have a bump test done in the morning at truck check, and the first Mondays of the month it should have a calibration done. Now, the way that we store these, it does have an IV cathode on top. You can take that off when you get ready to start, and it has something it's called a water trap filter, which is this little device right here. It just threads on very similar to an IV catheter. This needs to be on when you actually perform your bump and calibration tests. If these are, I would like to ask if you guys would inspect these. They do crack from time to time. If they do crack, this can give you a false result too and fail your machine. All right, we utilize the Auto Cradle 2 for the QRAE 3s to perform our bumps and calibrations. You should have a bottle of test gas that's attached to this. It will read on the side the 4 different gases that we test for: hydrogen sulfide, carbon monoxide, you'll have methane basically as your LEL, and then you'll have oxygen. The inert gas that makes up the other 21% of the atmosphere is obviously nitrogen. So those are the gases that you should have. At Station 2, we do have a couple other bottles here just because of some of the other monitors that we carry within the department. So please just verify that you do have the right test bottle. If you do happen to notice that the date on it is going out, please let me know and I'll get you a new bottle of test gas. All right, so to perform the bump test, we basically place the monitor with the water trap filter face down into the cradle. It'll start to charge. You pull it closed, that button will pop up. It goes through about a 2 to 2.5 minute warm-up cycle to get those sensors up to the operational temperature that they need to have to perform your bump and your calibration. So that's why you'll see on your cradle where it'll flash back and forth. And the literature and stuff that you can look at on the internet will support that. Eventually what will happen with your cradle is you'll have 2 solid greens. And from that point forward, you would simply push your bump if you were performing your daily bump test. And if it happens to be that first Monday of the month, push your calibration. I know when we did a training a few years ago, we've had some new employees that have started since then. What I've asked if you would be willing to do, if you do a bump in the morning, and let's say it fails bump, it should calibrate automatically. It'll go from the green to a green over here. If it fails both of those tests twice, please let me know, because I'll have to hook it up to the machine to see what's going on. So now you can see that this monitor both shows 2 green lights, which means that basically these sensors have warmed up to the operating temperature that they need to have to perform that bump test or calibration based on the day, what day you're doing this on. So today, this will be your morning AM check. Push the bump button, wait for a moment. Now it'll go through a couple minute process to where it'll start to pull some of this test gas through port number 1, which is how we should have labeled all these auto cradles. Everything I've configured in these, along with the help of AFC, will go into port number 1, and it takes a few minutes to perform the bump test. Once it's done, you should have either a solid green light or you have a red. That means either the green, it means it's go, you're good to go. Red means it's failed, okay? And like I said a moment ago, if you go through that step-by-step process where you bump it, and then if it fails, if it calibrates and it fails, and you repeat that one time, then at that point, please get in touch with me and I'll try to help you out. Now you can see here by that single beep that you notice that it's done, it's completed. And very similar to your smoke detectors that we put in the houses, you have the 3 beeps that come across. We have a solid green light. That means that this device is clearing or past its bump, which in this world means that it's within about 10% of these test gas numbers. And here on the report, it'll tell you we didn't do a calibration at this point, but we did do a bump test, and you can see where it says it passed. So here's the left one to do the down arrow. You can go to exit, and I'm going to select it by pushing the right. Now it'll ask you, would you like to return to normal mode? And we're going to say yes, because maybe you might be on a scene at this point and it's gone through its warm-up, because every time you turn these QRAEs on, it'll go through a couple minute warm-up to get those sensors back to where they need to be. It usually goes through a 30-second fresh air calibration. So obviously you should be trying to do this in a environment that has fresh air, and then from there you'll be ready to go. So there it is. There's your fresh air or zero calibration. You hit start, and it takes about 30 seconds to go through that, and then from there you will be all set to go. And that is the way that you would do a morning bump test on the QRAE 3s using the Auto 2 cradle. On its 30-second zeroing process, you can see it showing pass on all 4 of the sensors. So I would exit at this point, and now you are back to your main screen. Here's 0 CO, your LEL is at 0, H2S is 0, your oxygen is reading 20.9, and you can toggle through these. That will show your peaks in case if you're on a fire scene, you want to know what readings you were able to pick up. You can toggle to that next screen to see that. I would ask that after you're done with an event or a situation or an incident, please clear this. Clear your peaks and minimums, yes. And it'll do that. It just helps to recalibrate the device so it's ready for the next use. And then you can toggle through this. The rest of these don't matter to all of you. These are more things that I utilize and just basically the background setting up and maintenance that we do on these. All right, so now we have the QRAE in the cradle, the Auto Cradle 2, and it's basically at a bump and calibration point. It's asking you what would you like to do. So I'm going to calibrate it. One side note that I was asked to include was in the event that you guys have it up to this point, and let's say you catch a run or something like that, and you're coming back to the fire station and now it's quiet. After, I want to say it's like 20 or 30 minutes, the pump will shut down and this will just go into kind of like a sleep mode, which means it just charges in the cradle. A lot of hazmat teams store them that way. We obviously don't mount our cradles in the trucks. But to do a calibration on the first Mondays of the month, all you do is hit the calibration, just like that. Wait a few minutes. It takes a couple minutes for the QRAE to go through its entire calibration process. And once it's complete, as we kind of talked about with the bump test, we would have either like a solid green or a solid red light. With this one, it'll be the same way. You'll have either a solid green or you'll get kind of a red light. Whether it passed calibration or if it didn't. Like I just mentioned before, if you guys calibrate it and let's say you go through the process twice and it doesn't pass, please feel free to get in touch with me. We should be coming up here concluding on the calibration. And there's your 3 beeps. Very similar to like a smoke detector. You take it out. Now if you look at it, you'll see that it says it passed. It passed everything. It did not do a bump test. And it asks you, do you want to exit? You can keep right on toggling through this. So the fresh calibration passed. The span calibration passed. And then it gets you back to the point where you can say you can exit. So I'm going to exit out of this. I'll select it, return to normal mode. I'm going to say yes. And then it'll go through its warm-up process. This takes a couple minutes to get it back to its operating temperature, and at that point you have successfully completed a calibration on the QRAE. It will also ask you for what they call a fresh air zero calibration, and it does that. It's mandatory set up in the menu. So I'm going to hit start. It takes 30 seconds, and then you'll be up to you'll be all set to go. And then I'll show you what it says here when it as respects the sensors in just a moment. Okay, so there is your calibration and your results. It shows all 4 sensors are passed. So you can exit out of this and then you will be back to the main screen. So that's showing real-time data. The next one over will show you your peaks. And I would ask if you would be so kind that after you're done with an incident or a morning test, please clear your peaks and minimums. So that way it zeroes everything back out and it's ready to go for the next user. To shut it down, you would hold down the power button for 5 seconds. And now your QRAE is off. You can put your IV catheter along with your cheat sheet back on and you are good to go. Put it back in the truck mounted charger. Please make sure that there's a small little green or red light at the bottom so you know that it's charging, because it is very important for these things to always be charging when they're in the vehicles so they're going to work properly when you get to a scene. Thank you.